Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Longworth, and welcome to another episode of Triad Today, coming to you once again from the beautiful Cedar Botanical Garden in Kernersville. Coming up later on, our roundtable gets together and all sorts of controversies, and stay tuned for that. We have some great guests, important information coming your way throughout the half hour, but what we want to start is with this gentleman. First-time visitor to the show. Dr. Anthony Clark is president of GTCC, and we welcome you to Triad Today.
Well, thanks, Jim. Appreciate you having me.
Tony, you were named president, I believe it was in the latter part of 2019. And so because of the pandemic and everything else, it's the first time you and I have had a chance to sit down and talk in person.
That is true.
I do know a little bit about you, that you went to West Point, but what I'd like to hear is, where did you grow up, and who or what led you to education?
Sure. Well, I grew up on the East Coast. I was born in New Rochelle, New York, and my dad worked for General Motors, so we moved around a little bit. In kindergarten, I was in New Jersey. Second grade, I was in Massachusetts, and seventh grade, I was in Ohio.
Golly.
But yeah, grew up in suburbia. I mean, you know, people say you're from the city or the country. Well, I was from the suburbs.
Were your parents educators?
No. My dad, as I said, worked in General Motors Human Resources, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
And so we had 6 kids, so I'm the second oldest of 6.
Yeah, and the reason I was asking is because I'm wondering, was it a teacher, an instructor, an aunt, an uncle, anybody that sort of put the bug of education in your, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure your dad wanted you to go to college,
Sure.
that kind of thing, but you chose this path. Why?
Well, I'm not quite sure. I chose it from the perspective of I've done a lot of other things before I got to this path.
That's right.
But I always just loved learning. I just took to school. I was strong academically. I just loved learning. You mentioned West Point. I mean, I studied military history there. I remember going to the library and going into the stacks and looking at, papers from World War II and things.
Wow.
And it was just, just great. And so I just always loved learning. And so I was always sort of drawn to academia. So I think that's why when after industry, I ended up at Gateway Community and Technical College.
Yeah, you've done almost a couple decades in private industry. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
So so that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But I was always interested in education. As a matter of fact, right after I got my MBA, I started teaching adjunct, and I was an adjunct teacher for almost 15 years. So I always had my sort of foot in the door there.
I'll circle back to the industry thing in a second, but very quickly, what drew you to GTCC, and why are you so passionate about the mission?
Well, what drew me to GTCC, I was president down at Southeastern Community College in Whiteville, been there about 5 years, and I was just thinking about getting to a different challenge. And I wouldn't say a bigger challenge, because every college has its challenges, but I was thinking about a bigger college, and obviously GTCC is bigger than Southeastern Community College. And then as I was thinking about colleges in North Carolina, GTCC was on the list because of that reason. Plus, it serves one county, which I sort of was used to sort of focusing on one county. But really, it was the manufacturing and distribution focus and industry that's concentrated in Guilford County. And with my manufacturing background, I thought it might be a good fit. So when the job came open, I applied, and then I was honored to be selected.
All right, I said I was going to circle back to industry very quickly. With all that experience you had in the private sector, how do you sort of bring that experience? How does that help you meet the needs, not just of the students, but of area industries that you need to help get those jobs, the students to those jobs? How does that help?
Well, first the students, I mean, I think from that perspective, I bring a little stronger focus on workforce about what is the result of the degree, what is the result of the certificate that they're getting. Are they getting employable skills? And whether it's going to a 4-year school and then getting a career, or getting a career right out of GTCC. I think on the other, with employers, really the foundation I have in industry is really open doors at community colleges, because community colleges are very much about workforce development. Having been in industry, it really has sort of open doors in community colleges.
Well, you can talk the language of the industry too.
Well, exactly. I mean, I remember at General Mills, I was a production supervisor there. You'd come in every day and you'd see either a green number if you met the case count or number of cereal boxes you were supposed to make, or a red number if you didn't, and it was every day. And that's a pressure of performance that manufacturers and other people in industry have to meet every day. And I can empathize with that. I understand that. And when I go a tour of a factory, I have a little bit different perspective. I can sort of understand what's going on a little bit better. And customers are demanding. I mean, you're a customer, I'm a customer. We expect things to be high quality, on time, and those sorts of things. And we don't like excuses as customers, and as an industry, you're always sort of meeting those customer demands.
Well, I just think it's great. a college president who has that experience in industry, can talk the language and make it work for the students who need to get those jobs and for the industries who need the employees. I just think it's great. I want to put something up on screen before I forget. gtcc.edu is the main website. And there's so many things I want to talk with you about. Will you come back sometime?
Yeah, I'd love to come back. I
All right.
appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for everything.
Well, thank you for your time.
All right. We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today, and we have a return visitor to the program, and always glad when she can drop by. We're talking about, of course, Dr. Paula Gankowitz. She's a podiatric surgeon with Atrium Health Wake Forest Baptist, Lexington Medical Center. And welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Give us a quick definition of what a podiatrist would specialize in.
Sure. A podiatrist is a specialist of the foot and ankle, or a podiatric surgeon like myself deals with all the problems and diagnosing, treating, and managing all the problems that occur with the foot and ankle.
Now, you guys as a corporation have great doctors all throughout the system, sports med doctors and primary care physicians in the network and that kind of thing. But if I have a specific foot problem, why is it better perhaps that I go to someone like you?
That's a great question. In this digital age, patients are inundated with a lot of information. You have everything you could possibly need at your fingertips, whether you want it or not. And then we're also in an era of medicine that's very specialized. So there's specialties and then there's subspecialties within that. So it can be very confusing as a patient. I would say the first and best place to start off with if you're confused is probably talking to your primary care doctor or your primary care physician. They can direct you or guide you. In terms of a podiatrist, we deal with a wide array of different problems. So they can range from skin conditions like ingrown toenails or warts, and they can also deal with acute problems. Those could be sudden onset issues like a trauma or a bad infection in a diabetic patient. Those may require surgery or a procedure right away, and we don't want to delay in treatment. That's the one thing I'd want your viewers to understand. In addition to that, there's chronic issues like ongoing problems, nagging problems that are due to an underlying deformity. So,
Yeah, you mentioned some of these conditions. One thing we hear a lot about is plantar fasciitis.
yes.
So help me with that. Several questions. First, what is it and how does it occur?
Sure. So plantar fasciitis is a problem that occurs on the bottom of the foot. It generally presents as bottom of the heel pain or pain in the plantar arch. This can be caused for a number of reasons. So it could be due to an underlying flat foot deformity. It could be an overuse injury. In the wake and age of COVID, patients are working virtually and they're off their feet a lot. So they could have a weight gain that could contribute to their discomfort too.
Wow. Now, what can we do to prevent that particular condition, and how do you treat it once it's onset?
Sure. So ways to treat it, I guess we'll start off with, is when you're dealing with that discomfort, stretching exercises can be extremely beneficial. Stretching out the Achilles tendon and working on making sure that you have the mobility that you need. That can minimize the discomfort on the bottom of the heel.
Right.
Orthotics or good arch supports in the shoe can be helpful. And then also having good shoe gear. Any shoe that I can take and really twist around is probably comfortable but not necessarily supportive.
Well, that's true. You know, you talk about bedroom slippers or comfortable loafers or something, but they're not giving you that support.
Absolutely.
And so now, are you? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Are you saying that if I have that condition or I'm bothered by something in the pain in the heel, I can sometimes just switch to a better shoe with more support, and it's going to sort of dissipate?
It may. In the wake and times of COVID, we're walking around barefoot a lot. So you can imagine your foot is always flattened out significantly.
Right.
So having a good arch support, switching up your shoes a little bit, doing all these things can really address the mechanical issues that are going on.
But you're also saying that weight gain, and I want to point right here. Weight gain can exacerbate it though, right?
It definitely can. Your foot and ankle is a very important part of the body because it carries everything else. So if we're carrying around an extra 20, 30 pounds, then we're going to see that present in our feet.
All right, I want to put something up on screen. Now, the general website is wakehealth.edu. That gets you everywhere. But specifically, if you'd like to make an appointment to talk about the issues we were mentioning, 713-FOOT. That's easy to remember, 713-FOOT. And Paul, I appreciate you coming by.
Thank you so much for having me, Jim.
All right, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today. Always glad when we can visit with this gentleman. He's been on the show many times before and does such good work for the community. I'm talking about, of course, Andy Ward. He's Regional Manager of Mission Advancement for Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to be back.
You know, we're into the beginning of a new year, sort of. This is our first taping. We had a special program last week, so this is our first time to get together since the new year. And that leads me to this. A lot of people make New Year's resolutions. They say, I want to improve on this, I want to improve on that. How can Goodwill help with people wanting to improve?
Sure. So at Goodwill, our mission's always been tied to the mindset of helping people to reach their full potential, to enhance their lives through the power of work. And so work is what our main focus is on, and we achieve that mission through various different, training opportunities, employment opportunities that help people to get maybe that new skill set. Maybe it's to take a new training that's going to help launch them into a new career path, or maybe for folks who are already working, they're already in employment somewhere, training, or maybe an upskill that lets them get into that that new role or that new position.
And all ages of people too.
All ages, yes, sir.
You've been on, as I said, several times before. You and I have talked about these topics, but one thing I want to get you to do, if you would, give me a couple of specific examples of the kind of skills training that somebody might receive. I mean, give me an idea, because people say, hey, I hear about skills training. What does it really mean?
Sure. So within our skills training, first and foremost, across our territory, we're tied to the community college systems. So we work with 12 different community colleges across our territory. Here in Forsyth County, of course, that's Forsyth Tech. Amazing partnership, goes back 20 years. Phenomenal programs and staff over there. And so really good partnership. But the trainings that are in that tied to things within healthcare, things within trade skills, within office technology, transportation, logistics, things of that nature.
And even to the point of if I'm an older guy and I want to switch careers, or I've been laid off, maybe you can suggest how I can learn about the internet and computers.
Absolutely.
And all. So it goes down to the simple to the basic. Are your graduates from your skills training courses, do they seem to be landing jobs quickly? I know we're still in the throes of a pandemic, but in general.
Yeah, so even among all the doom and gloom when it comes to jobs, the job market is, there's a lot of jobs out there. We're seeing that with the employers. Employers are wanting folks in, and there's a lot of opportunity for sure for the folks that want to work, and the folks that are coming in, getting the skills trade. They're going out there and they're landing jobs pretty quick. A lot of our skills training classes have a stackable, so it's, you could come in and just take a welding class, for instance, but you might also come in, do a MIG welding, followed up with TIG, followed up with industrial, maybe attach an HVAC or a facility maintenance class to that, and that you walk out the door at that point with 2 or 3 certifications.
I didn't realize
that's a big
that. I
deal.
didn't realize that. So then, if the job market is a lot of openings in the heating and air conditioning field, then you can go that way, even
Right.
if you started out wanting to do something with welding. I think that's great. Now, who is eligible for these programs?
So basically, anyone in the community can come into Goodwill and get our services. Of course, our services are basically free and at no cost to folks through our stores. So when you donate to the store, 89 cents on every dollar goes back to fund these programs that we're talking about, and they're really open to anyone. Now, within that, there are programs that are for specific populations. So. If you're a veteran looking for a veterans program, you have to be a veteran to get in, or a family member of that veteran.
But this is more general for.
Yeah, for general, there's going to be a program for sure within Goodwill that's going to fit the needs of anybody in the community.
All right. One way to learn more, we can do 2 things here. One is of course the basic website goodwillnwnc.org, but also you had emailed me. Speaking of email, you can email virtualnav. I guess short for navigation, virtualnav@goodwillnwnc.org. So you can email or you can visit that website. But either way, Andy, thanks for all you do for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, good to be back.
We'll be right back. Back now on Triad Today. I always like to bring on this special guest. She's a friend of the show, and she has a special guest too. On my right, Karen Barnes, CEO of Agile City, Winston-Salem, and she wears many hats, but she also has a special guest with her, Daniel Johannes, the CEO of Renaissance Fiber. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Karen, I'm going to start with you, and for folks that haven't seen the show before, remind everybody what the Venture Winston Grant Program is all about, and how does this man figure
How
into
does
it?
this guy fit into it? So the Venture Winston Grants is a competition to bring startups to the Triad and support startups here in the Triad. And Daniel and his company are one of the recipients of our first crop of grants. And I use the word crop very intentionally because Daniel is a hemp farmer. This is a hemp startup. And so what better way to build on some of our agricultural heritage with some new innovation and take our tobacco economy into the hemp economy.
Absolutely. Now, Daniel, very quickly, tell us what Renaissance Fiber is all about.
Renaissance Fiber is a North Carolina clean tech company whose focus is the transformation of hemp into textile fiber. We do this in an economically and ecologically viable and ecologically invisible approach.
Now, I think you sent me an email one day saying that, hey, Jim, be sure to understand that the fiber that you're working with isn't just important for the apparel industry. There's a bigger picture involved. What do you mean?
That's right. So, the apparel industry is our main focus, which is, the textile industry has a sustainability problem. And, with microfibers in the ocean, with regards to polyester, and then with natural fibers like cotton being very water intensive and pesticide intensive. And so the world needs an alternative and sustainable fiber. And that's where hemp fiber comes in. Hemp is much less water intensive. It's very economical to produce, and it also is something that doesn't, it's biodegradable. So those are the advantages.
Right, and a lot of people don't like some of the chemicals and things that are used in making apparel that we've always used for a million years, and this solves that problem too. Now, people are going to say this question's stupid because you get the grant, and of course, you wanted to accept the grant and come here. But other than that, I mean, why Winston-Salem? What's good about that?
Well, Winston-Salem has a history of business support, but beyond that, our city and our state is focused on, has traditionally focused on industries that emerge from the land, whether it's tobacco, textiles with cotton, and so we feel like we fit into Winston-Salem as part of this tradition of strong business and business that comes from industry that comes from the land.
Daniel's a good example, Karen, of your mission and what you're trying to accomplish through Agile City, through the Venture Winston grants. Why is he a great example?
He is a great example because I've known Daniel for probably 3 or 4 years now, and I've seen him put in the time, I've seen him put in the work, put in the smarts, the money, the passion, and this is potentially a transformative economy for the state of North Carolina. Everybody's so distracted by tech, but we can build on our legacy of agriculture in a new way. And one of the things that Daniel taught me is hemp used to be a multi-billion-dollar business in this country pre-1930 or so, and let's see if we can't recapture some of the momentum for the rural economic future of North Carolina.
Looking forward, working toward the future by grabbing a little bit of the past and the traditions. Up on screen, renaissance-fiber.com is a website you can check out for more information on that. Also, agilecity.ws is the website for Karen and her group. And thanks and a shout out to David Mounts and his folks at Inmar Intelligence, up on screen, inmar.com. Thanks for all you do, Karen.
Thank you, Jim.
And thanks and welcome and good luck.
Thank you so much, Jim.
We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today, time for the illustrious roundtable. The illustrious Ogie Overman, the great broadcaster and journalist, is on my right. Socially distanced behind us, two great guys. Dave Plyler, chairman of Forsyth County Commissioners. Keith Granberry, founder of Helping Hands Consultants. All right, guys, let's get to it. First topic. Due to what he calls a, quote, epidemic of violent behavior on airplanes, Senator Ed Markey is proposing legislation that would ban the sale of alcohol in airport bars and restaurants. Good idea, bad idea, Ogie?
Well, I like Markey a lot, but that's not the solution. I think you need to stiffen the laws, make it a felony, post signs in the airport saying one offense and you're going to jail.
Dave, ban the alcohol in the airports?
I think you could outlaw it and probably should be, especially if you're serving it on an aircraft. The problem you run into is how are you going to enforce it? You can put them in jail for a day or two, and if they can still buy that material, you've got to fill it out.
Keith?
I don't think that's the case. I think that you have to enforce people's behavior. You go to bars, when you're out, you drink. If you do something wrong, you have to pay for it, same as in the airport.
Yeah, the problem is you could take 2 drinks at home, not seem impaired, not go to the restaurant bar, go straight to boarding. They'll give you 2 drinks on the plane. By that time, you know,
But you still have to be able to monitor your own behavior. We're all adults here.
All
You
right.
have to deal with the consequences.
Oh, really?
Yeah, most of us are adults in here. Last
I think
year
we are.
Yeah, last year we talked a lot about Confederate statues and whether they should be removed, et cetera, et cetera. Now the state of Pennsylvania is removing or revising historic road markers that might be considered racist or sexist. They're either taking them down or they're changing the language. You okay with that effort? And would you like to see North Carolina do the same thing? We have 1,600 of those road markers, Ogie.
Honestly, I had never thought about that. I don't know, maybe it merits a look at them if there are any that are overtly racist or stupid. Maybe they ought to be.
Revise or take down road markers, Dave?
I don't think you need to do that. That's part of our history. Whether you like it or not, they are part of our history. The question you have to answer now is, how do you keep people who don't think it's part of our history from defacing it and going to court?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Keith, what do you think?
I think you take them down. I think there's a lot of history that's not talked about that's part of our history. A lot of things that black people did back during the slavery that's not part of our history. There's no markers for them. There's only markers. Most of these markers are for people who have done things that have hurt a race, and I think they should be removed.
All right, now this is a little sensitive, this issue, but I want to bring it up. The federal government has allocated $1.5 billion to pay for funerals of people who died for COVID, if their families can't afford the funeral. Now, under this program, families can receive up to $9,000 cash for the funerals. Guys, as tragic as this is, people dying from COVID, are you okay with taxpayer dollars going to reimburse for private funerals? Ogie?
Well, Jim, a year and a half ago, I would have been all for it. At this stage of the game, I have a problem with it.
Since we now have vaccinations.
If you pay the consequences yourself if you choose not to get the vaccination.
Dave, very quickly, what do you think?
Frank, I don't really have an opinion on it because there's more to it than the question you just asked. My problem now is if you don't get vaccinated, you very well could die, and if that happens, that's a personal choice. On the other hand, who's going to say that what you said was wrong at the time? And the situation is so
Yeah, because and it goes back to when the vaccinations were available and when they weren't.
Right.
Keith, very quickly, what do you think?
I think that it should happen. Number one, right now there's a variant out that is immune to the vaccine. So we don't really know what this thing is, and I think people need help. So I think it should happen.
We've talked about how some colleges stopped requiring SAT and ACT scores during the pandemic. We talked about that last year and the year before, actually. But now Harvard says it will extend that policy through the year 2026. So now the question is, guys, should all colleges do away with these tests permanently? Ogie?
I don't think so. I've never understood why you have to take tests in life to get in school, to stay in school. It's just a part of, you can make it more equitable, and you might revise the test some, but you got to take tests.
Get rid of the SATs altogether, Dave?
The system isn't broken, and it doesn't need to be fixed.
Well, that's pretty, I guess he said what he meant there,
Me and
Keith.
Dave's usually on the same side of things, but today the system is broken. I think we need to look at grades first. That's the first thing. And we need to look at how these tests are created, because a lot of times they're created not equally, and we people suffer from that. So
There's some racial and cultural
Absolutely.
biases, but even beyond that, I know that I had better grades than I did able to score on SAT, just the
Exactly.
pressure of it. All right, finally, guys, according to fashion industry experts, we won't need clothes in the future. We will not need clothes in the future. We'll be wearing 3D virtual clothes. So, guys, do you plan to only wear virtual clothes in the future? Ogie?
Not even. You know how I dress. I went out the other night, it was 18 degrees. I'm thinking, man, I'm glad I don't have on virtual clothes. Come on.
Dave, they might do away with clothes in the future. You going to dress virtually?
The question you asked lacked one thing:
What's that?
gender identification.
Yeah. Well, Ogie wouldn't have any problem with the women. You wouldn't care if the women dress virtually.
That's perfectly fine.
Keith, would you like to dress virtually, no clothes, just virtual clothes?
Well, Jim, in all of my sexiness, I probably I would just not even wear clothes. I would just walk around
You're saying you're already virtually sexy
I
enough.
am virtually sexy as we speak.
I'll tell you what you're virtually in just a minute. That's all the time we have. Oh, except for this. As you well know, there have been 2 different time capsules recovered from the base of the Robert E. Lee statue in Richmond, Virginia. It was buried in 1887, and they've recovered some interesting things like Civil War journals, coins from the Civil War, and a copy of Joe Biden's birth certificate. I don't know what that means. All right, for all of us here on Triad Today, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you next week.